Hi, Jen and Kayla. Thanks for joining. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us today, everyone. My name is Teresa. I'm Program Specialist for Policy and Advocacy. Thank you so much for joining us today for our presentation and discussion on House Bill 100, which is sponsored by Representative Jenny Armstrong. Joining us today, we have her Chief of Staff, Tristan Walsh. Paid family leave is a critical policy for families, providing important financial and emotional support for parents and children during moments when it is most needed. With this introduction of HB 100, Alaska has the opportunity to see this policy more widely implemented across the state. We are going to record this meeting. As we have a small group, it sounds like it might be a good idea to just go around really briefly, especially now as the representative has joined us. Just introduce yourself and your organization, and then have time for Tristan and the representative to share about themselves as well. Is Jen, are you on? Would you like to add anything as well before we do a quick round of introductions?
I have nothing to add. I'm in the middle of the SeaTac airport dealing with flight delays. So I will let you guys handle it and I will be listening in.
Sounds great. Thanks for joining us, Jen. Right, yeah, and so as I said, my name is Teresa. I'm Program Specialist for Policy and Advocacy at Alaska Children's Trust. It'd be awesome to have everyone just say their name briefly and their organization. Jack, I saw you come off camera. Would you mind starting us off?
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to meet you all and be here. My name is Jack. I work for Volunteers of America of Alaska. We're a behavioral health nonprofit providing services to youth and families, and I oversee our HR operations.
Great. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. I just set up a new computer and I had to do the whole Bluetooth thing for the first time. Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Barbara Zappa. I'm the Director of Human Resources at South Central Foundation.
Great. George or Kayla, would you want to share?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla Pfister. I am the Director of Communications at the Children's Trust. Looking forward to figuring out the best ways to communicate this out to our partners and the public.
Awesome.
All right, I'll go ahead and jump in now. My name is George Moody. I am the Finance and Operations Manager with the Alaska Center.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. With that, I will hand it over to the representative and Tristan. Thank you again for speaking to us today about this important policy for Alaska's families.
Yes, of course. So Tristan, who's on, is my chief of staff. I keep joking that he spent the interim getting like a master's or PhD in paid family leave and insurance. None of this is possible without him. And I am Rep. Armstrong. Please call me Jenny. I represent West Anchorage, and I am the only mom in the legislature, in the House or the Senate, with a young family. So only mom who, in the whole body, who had a child on the child care wait list. I was on it for 18 months. Only mom who recently took a paid family leave, which I self-insured through my company. So this is something that is highly personal for me, and it's been really important to me to kind of represent families. I am going to share my screen. Let me know if y'all can see everything okay. Are we good?
I am seeing it. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, great. And I'll go through this kind of quickly because I know many of you already know and understand the value of paid family leave, but we have a lot of slides and a lot of resources, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for answering questions. So I'll kind of go through this, and then please, it'll be a completely open forum to ask us anything you may want to know. So House Bill 100 is for paid family leave, paid family and medical leave. And fundamentally what it's going to do is take the existing Alaska Paid Family Leave Act and change it from 18 weeks unpaid leave to 18 weeks paid leave. And so we would be asking the state to cover insurance premiums for that paid leave. And I'll get to that in a little bit. And then we get to extend this benefit because we were introducing an insurance product to the entire private sector political subdivisions, basically every employer and individual employee. So I'll go into a little bit of the details on that later. I think everyone here knows that our families are in crisis, our workforce is in crisis. And for me, this is the kind of thing that is a win-win-win. That would be an immediate way to help us with recruitment and retention. And of course, it is going to immediately help with our children and our families. When you take the fact that we don't have this, and you add in the childcare crisis and the fact that infant care is so hard and limited, and that families have to go back to work because there isn't paid leave. There are just so many stories of families having to put their children in really unsafe home situations. I'm in Facebook groups where moms are sharing like who to avoid and who to not go to because they're abusing or neglecting the kids. I mean, these are horrifying things. And there's just genuinely not an option. It is become homeless, like there's just no choice. So paid family leave will also alleviate, I think, that huge burden. I think many of us know that 23% of mothers go back to work within 10 days of giving birth, which is absolutely not what is recommended. And I like to throw this out there because it's kind of a horrifying stat. There are 28 states in the US that have laws or regulations around how old a puppy must be before it is allowed to be removed from its mother and sold. And that is oftentimes like 8 weeks. And so we have rules that make it illegal, and you can be fined and go to jail for separating a puppy from its mom before 8 weeks. And yet we expect moms and dads to go back to work. With no paid family leave, it can be in a day, unless you have paid leave or sick leave of another kind. I'll move a little bit faster here. So obviously we know that we have a huge opportunity to invest this through investing in our families. Many of you might be familiar with the Heckman equation. Basically, we know that the earlier we invest in early childhood development, the higher the ROI long-term and their eventual success. So we're talking about lowering ACEs scores. Some studies show like a $13 to $16 return, like X return on investment for every dollar that is spent. Higher performance in school, like reduced chance of drug use or addiction. Because paid family leave is not a novel thing and has been around for so long in other countries, we're lucky to have a lot of research on that. And because some larger companies and states have been able to have this for a while, this is really rooted in science. I think it's something that for some people, especially in politics, policy is a little bit harder because they want immediate returns to show to their constituents. So this part is the longer term, but I think that it's crucial for thinking about setting us up for that long-term success. Okay, so in 2021, there was basically not a paid family leave industry. There were not products. If you were lucky enough to have paid family leave, it's because your company or your employer, like if you worked for a very progressive state, had paid family leave and they were self-insuring you. So they were just covering your salary while redistributing your work tasks and maybe bringing in a contractor if they needed to cover your work. Now, within just a few years, we have every single state in the country and somewhere in process or already complete with implementing paid family leave. And so if we had not introduced HB 100 last session, we would be the only gray state on this map. And I don't know about y'all, but I do not want to keep being left behind and being last on everything. And so I'm really grateful that we have this in process. And what has changed is essentially that there are now insurance companies that are entering this market. And so paid family leave, instead of doing that dollar for dollar wage replacement by the employer, there's an insurance company who is covering it, and the employer or the employee, depending on how it's structured, is covering the premium. And these premiums are incredibly low because this is a very, very low risk insurance product. So there's a lot of different states that are kind of using this. The one that we really modeled our legislation after is New Hampshire. So we call it the New Hampshire model. And their provider for paid family leave is MetLife. And we would have a bidding process in our state, but just to throw it out there, MetLife happens to be our short-term disability provider. So there's already infrastructure and knowledge in state that can make this come to life. So just a couple of things. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to cover here. I think the other thing I'll say is that if HB 100 passes as it's currently written, it would make us the 4th most competitive state for state employees. And I think something that might impact a lot of you here beyond just your own employees and your networks is that if the state can implement this and be the 4th most competitive state in terms of paid leave, that means that we can be staffing for food stamp distribution. It means that like all of the problems that so many of your clients and folks that you interact with are facing, that burden will be easier. It is because of such poor staffing and recruitment and retention at the state level that is exacerbating so many crises that we have in our state. There is Office of Public Advocacy, the domestic violence support. I just can name so many things where it's like there is literally not a person there who can help or support. So I think for me, there's just so many ripple effects of giving state employees this benefit that's going to help everybody. All right. I think I already covered this. So basically what we're doing, this would be no cost for state employees. Sorry, I have Zoom. I'm gonna just close your beautiful faces real quick. Okay, so this would be no cost for employees. It's 18 weeks for state employees covered by the state. And then what we're doing, this is like a very libertarian approach to this, is because this, insurance pool will now exist, political subdivisions, so municipalities, school districts, boroughs, and state corporations can offer between 6 to 18 weeks. And the part that is highly flexible about this is that we're not doing an unfunded mandate. So if a school district can't afford this, we're not telling them that they have to provide it. But even if they can't afford the premiums, they can still offer this to their employees, and the employees can pay their premium through their payroll like they may pay for any other premium. That's another beautiful part of like this being an insurance vehicle, is that every employer, virtually every employer in the state, knows how to manage insurance premiums and covering these types of things. I run a very small business, and this is very easy for me to do because I use a payroll provider where this would just be a line item that I add into payroll. So it gives everyone flexibility, and it creates a lot of, honestly, in-state competition, because one school district can say, hey, we'll do 18 weeks and we'll cover your full premium. And another school district might offer 6 weeks and make the employee cover the premium. And so it's whatever they can kind of do. Then for private employers, it's between 6 to 12 weeks, chosen, at the discretion of the private employer. And then if your employer is not enrolled and you are an individual employee in the state, you can join the individual purchasing pool and get 6 weeks. A couple of important things, and that was really important to me, is that this was 100% of your wages. We believe that if you get 100% of your wages when you take vacation, you should get 100% of your wages when you have a baby. And then the cap we put is $3,000 per week. So that's for some of those really high paid state employees. All right, so yeah, I think I covered a lot of this. Yeah, creating competition. Everyone's familiar with this. Great. One thing to just note, in case you had followed this from the beginning, we've had a few hearings on this already in Labor and Commerce, is the original version of this bill that we introduced had this state self-insuring the paid family leave. And it's only with version B that we introduced in November, and that will get adopted by Labor and Commerce next week as the newest version of the bill, where we changed that to that insurance vehicle. And so essentially this version of the bill is the most voluntary and low cost way of implementing this. And my personal hope, just speaking as Jenny, is that, we implement this, people see how beneficial it is, and it only grows from here. Maybe we do start to make things not me, but maybe it is the will of a body in the future to make this mandatory or to extend it or expand it, because I think everyone's really going to see that immediate ROI. I have a bunch of slides about how this kind of, supports businesses in the state. I'll cover a couple of interesting stats here. So, one big thing, because a lot of what we try to focus on is like how this is beneficial to our economy, is in California, they saw a 14% decrease in per worker labor cost. There's been research that's shown, I think we spend, interesting, correct me if I'm wrong, we spend on average 21% of a salary for an open position recruiting for that position. And so you can imagine how much this can do the work for us. This is the kind of thing where if this passes, the second it does, every business in the state can start waving a flag saying, come work for me. I can offer you paid family leave. The state can start attracting people, and it just, again, keeps us competitive with other states. It'll keep people here. It might bring people back. Of course, people who have paid family leave are much more likely to return to work. They maintain their salary levels. There's just so much good data around that. Support in terms of how it supports our state. If we had women in Alaska participating in the workforce in the same rate as countries where women have paid leave, there would be an estimated 8,000 additional workers in the state and 313.8 million in more wages earned statewide. And when you consider that our most recent Commerce report came out saying that we have 2 open jobs for every available working Alaskan, that's really significant for us right now. So it's just a huge win. I think it's something that would obviously support our families in such a major way. All the good stuff about early childhood. Let me see if there's anything else I want to cover here. Yeah, obviously reducing ACEs score. It reduces public assistance. It helps with like just the income loss really hits families hard. So that obviously makes a huge difference. And one thing I want to focus on, I've just realized in this whole conversation, I keep referencing kind of that postpartum period, but I want to be clear that the Alaska Paid Family Medical Leave Act is not just for that postpartum period. It's for severe illnesses for like your child or dependent. And so this is the kind of policy that covers you from like cradle to grave, is a phrase that Tristan has been using. So it's not something that is just going to be attractive to people who have young families or are thinking about starting families. It's something that everyone, nearly all of us, can benefit from. And yeah, I think that's it. Reduction in child mortality. We have more increased breastfeeding. We lower postpartum rates. There's just so many public health benefits. It's just so important. This is a really fascinating study. Fathers who take paid leave are more likely to live longer. And something else that's interesting, in California, dads have taken out 44% of the bonding time of that leave. And that's exactly what we want to be seeing. So it's amazing. And yeah, this focuses a lot more on dependents. So kind of not focusing on the childcare piece, but we also have a shortage of direct care workers, our nursing homes. And this would be a great way to allow people to get that care that they need. It increases access to preventative care. Workers can get critical care so that they can get back to work. So it can cover, like, you know, we're in the middle of an opioid crisis right now. So many ways that it helps. Anyway, that was a little bit all over. Let me come back and see y'all. Okay, there you are. Great. So I know that was kind of a lot of information, a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. Happy to answer any questions you might have about the bill or how this might work. Or we'd also just love to hear your own thoughts and your experience with this, and yeah, just hear your opinions. Not everybody all at once, please. Tristan, do you want to jump in on anything or add to anything I said?
I guess one of the things, yeah, I think what's novel about the approach Rep. Armstrong's taken here, she touched on this a little bit, but essentially we are just creating a pivot from existing state policy where a lot of employers, including the state of Alaska under AFLA, and then employers under FEMLA, the federal law, already have to provide this job protected absence. And so we're creating a very low cost vehicle for them to make it paid. And what we basically do is just carry over the really robust protections in AFLA into the statutes that would let private employers and individuals access that. So when we look at the broad array of things that society faces right now in Alaska when it comes to infants, elder care, we all know that a family should be a very durable resource for individuals, and it's often the place where that they know what's best for their own family members. So this would let them have that economic security to provide that care. And so it's really organic. It helps a lot in terms of helping people take care of their own. And then also we can do it through existing infrastructure that businesses already know how to use. And so that's where it's really interesting and novel. And I think for some folks on the call, they might be familiar with long-term care insurance, and it's kind of been a long-term erosion in that industry when it comes to the ability for that market to care for the most vulnerable in our society. So what's actually really interesting about this is that we're actually, I think, witnessing the birth of a new industry, which is paid family leave through basically modified short-term disability. So it's actually really interesting and kind of very exciting to see something like good news like this happening on a broad scale. And so the good thing is we have a lot of policy options in the lower 48 we've been able to look at. And what Rep. Armstrong thought was really, really interesting was that with this ability to extend the benefits to private employers, we can for once be recruiting people to Alaska. And actually, even in Alaska, the feds are already offering this policy, 12 weeks, 100% salary replacement. And so we could actually, poach some employees back from the Fed here in state, which could be really, really fun thing for the state to actually finally do. And then it would also be a really, really fun advertising campaign to launch in lower 48. This is the best place to raise a family. And I think a really good metaphor is in the 1970s, before we had oil, we created Tier 1 to get a generation of workers to move here and live here. And when you say the word actuary, that'll trigger a lot of legislators. But when you look at this policy, this is the sort of thing that you could convince somebody to build a career with the state of Alaska, or whether it's with a private employer or with the state, it's something that they could say, you know, this really would work for us. And so that's what makes it really fun. That's it.
I was just going to say, Aaron Clemens here. I am extremely excited about this opportunity. I don't work for the state. I work out in the Mat-Su Valley, but I know what happens with one, it can happen with others. And so it'd be nice to see a great workforce leading the way in this. So that's exciting. And my question is, as a voting citizen, how can I advocate for this? Maybe you mentioned it at the very beginning. I joined a few minutes late, but how can I help, move this forward? Because I think it's that important for many different reasons. Yes, recruiting, but for families, for children. I mean, it's long overdue. So, so what are options for helping as a state employee and such?
Yes, and Aaron, I think you may have come on a little late. So one thing I'll say is that this benefit and opportunity will extend to the entire state. So it would impact you too, because your employer can offer this to you and they can choose whether or not they pay the premium, you pay the premium, you split the premium cost. But the beautiful thing is we're having the state cover the premiums for all state employees for 18 weeks of paid leave. And because it's through an insurance product, we're basically creating a statewide pool for individual employees and employers to take advantage of this. So just so you know, everyone here would benefit. And if this passes, all of you would be able to have access to this. Even if your employer didn't offer it, you as an individual can enter the purchasing pool. And then the other thing I'll just mention really quick, and then I'm going to answer your question, Aaron, but it made me think of something I missed, was just as an example, talking about that New Hampshire model, which this is modeled after. There's a small business owner in New Hampshire, and he covered the premiums for his 25 employees. And it was 60% of wages at 12 weeks, right, Tristan? And it was $3,000 for the year. So when you're talking, these premiums are so low cost because it's such a low risk product. It's $2, $5, $10 a week. The worst case scenario is that this is a $20 a week scenario premium. I'm not an actuarial. That's up for the insurance providers to say, don't hold me to this. There's a lot of thoughtful work that has to go into it. But from all of our research and what we've seen, and assuming that we can make a large pool in the state, it would be something that's highly affordable for everyone. As for ways to get involved, if you are interested in supporting this in any way or staying in touch with us, if you could please drop your email in the chat. There are going to be different opportunities throughout the legislative session where we could really use your support, whether that's a letter or testifying. We will have testimony next week in Labor and Commerce. You can send an email, and it looks like Tristan dropped it in the chat. Excuse me. You can send an email to House Labor and Commerce, and then that'll get added to Basis. You can also write a letter of support on behalf of your organization, which goes a really long way, putting it on your company or organization letterhead, and then sharing it on Facebook, social media. And finally, you can also just call in to open testimony on next Wednesday, and we can share those details. So if you give us your email, we can keep you posted. We are hoping to move this out of Labor and Commerce in the next couple of weeks. We'll have testimony next week, and then wait for amendments, and then hopefully get to move it out the following week. Again, this is all just hope, like what we hope will happen. And then we'll go to our next committee after that. So there's going to be different points in session where like we may need you to come back and testify again, or copy paste your email to the next committee. And if you're willing to do that, it would really mean a lot and go a long way for us.
Are there specific areas of the state that would benefit to have testimony from over others?
I think my goal would be to have as broad coverage as possible. Like, I don't just want rural or urban or bush. I think I personally want to see something from everywhere. And so we're really early on. This is our first committee that we are getting testimony for. So I don't have something I can compare to of like, oh, it seems like we have way too many people from Anchorage and we haven't heard from anyone, in Nome or something. But the more the merrier. We just want to show a flood of emails and support, and that this is something that people really want and are really excited about. So I certainly wouldn't tell you not to submit it if you thought that maybe you were in an oversaturated market. We want to hear from everybody.
I have a couple of questions. I'll try and segment them so other people can drop in, but first of all, also very excited, and we actually added a paid parental leave policy a couple years ago, and I be happy to speak just the benefits we've seen. Obviously, we're not a huge employer, but it's been awesome for us, and I'm a huge advocate for that. So my first question, Jenny, you talked about how there are some of these different options for private employers. Can employees both do the individual like 6 weeks in the pool as well as participate with their private employer in that 6 to 12 weeks to bring them up to a total of 18 weeks? Or is it one or the other?
I believe it's one or the other, right, Tristan?
Correct. Presently as written, yes. But I will say, I'll go back through and look at AFLA, and I can check back in with via email on this to the whole group here. But there are similar scenarios that folks have presented to the state in the past when it came to unpaid absence, and then also using like their accrued leave. We deliberately have kept it so that you don't have to substitute accrued leave. This will be a separate benefit. So I can double check on that. But I think basically the state says, say that a pregnant mother adopts, they would have the ability to use the current policy and then also use bonding leave the next year for the other child. So they have a similar scenario. It's kind of analogous, but what we can do is I can ask. That's a good question. It's actually the first time we've been asked it. And so that's a really good conversation to have, especially in the committee, because how can we better help parents, right?
And Jack, just to answer your other question, it would be immensely helpful if you're willing to give public testimony on the phone and share. I'm just going to make something up. I'm not saying this is the experience, but as a nonprofit, you can say, we've had paid family leave. Here are all of the amazing benefits that we have seen. Maybe you can speak to anything you've seen with recruitment, retention, employee happiness, speaking to how easy it was. Like so many people are like, well, what are they going to do when they're on leave? And I'm like, people are already having babies and leaving. This is not a bill that is compelling people to start families. And wow, what an amazing problem to have if we had so many people starting families because they felt they had the security to do so, that we had to get creative and think about job sharing in new ways. This is something that I just putting on like my business owner hat. If you already have this plan, if we then introduce this policy to the market, instead of you VOA self-insuring, you can use this insurance premium. It's going to save you money because you're not doing a dollar for dollar wage replacement. You're just paying premiums on behalf of your employees. And then maybe that allows for more money to go back into the community, into other services. It cuts down on overhead. Like I can see the trickle effect of how having a more affordable way to offer this to your employees just ends up benefiting everybody more. So yes, it would be incredibly valuable to hear anything about your experience on that. And I think we have one other group that will also be speaking to their paid leave, like they have paid leave and what this would mean for them. So it'd be really nice to have that if you're willing to share.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I actually could probably get one of our employees who's taken it, if that would be even more helpful. Who over the last couple of years, we recently just did some interviews with them. Anyway, so and I can also
having both of you would be great. Having you from
great.
HR perspective and then having the employee perspective, both of those are super valuable.
I can affirm that we didn't have just a rush of people having babies. It's just normal baby pace. So I was also curious, you referenced the non-birth parent leave. So is this, and then you also just briefly, and I'm not sure I understood you correctly, would this also be applied to adoptions? Would it be for non-birth parents? Or is it specific to birth mothers?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I brushed over the eligibility, and we're going to redo our PowerPoint next week because there's a lot I want to reorganize there. So in the Alaska Paid Family Leave Act, it covers moms, dads, stepchildren, fostering, adoption, all of that good stuff. So all of that eligibility already exists, and we are not changing eligibility at all. So we're not adding or taking away. We already have a pretty progressive eligibility. We're only changing the word unpaid to paid in the Alaska Family Medical Leave Act.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I thought I understood, but I wanted to confirm. And then I was also curious, this is more of just a self-interest question, but I know some of the states that have really taken this and ran with it. Like I'm from Seattle and had worked in Washington for a while and have moved to like a fully kind of state provided family leave plan. Is that the long-term goal, or is that just completely unrealistic for Alaska, and we are going to try and work our way toward that with the self-insured or the insured model.
Yeah, so I can tell you that if I had unlimited money and I knew it could pass, that my version of a paid family, ideal version of a paid family leave would be mandatory 1 year full paid leave for every person in the state. Like that would just be my personal dream. I think what we really wanted to craft here was something that we felt that everyone could get excited about and that really matched kind of the both budget and political environment that we're in. And so I didn't want something that was performative. I wanted something that could pass. And so this is obviously like the most conservative. I mean, not the state part is very progressive. Like I said, it'd be the fourth best in the state. But the fact that we're not doing any mandates for political subdivisions or making any requirements of private employers, which some other states have done, keeps it highly libertarian, free market, creates competition. And like I said, my hope is that people will do this, see the benefit, and they'll want to expand it either on their own or through, maybe it happens through statute. And something Tristan has also brought up is like, there will be a bidding process for like who the insurance provider would be for this plan. And there is nothing in this bill that prohibits another insurance provider from offering like a better plan. Like it's going to create competition also among insurance providers, which is ultimately going to benefit employers and employees. So yeah.
Okay, great. And then my last question for now, which is kind of, and sorry everyone if you had
This is
questions, I just
Great.
commandeered this, but is a very kind of like technical question. So is for the states that have done this, is the relationship with the insurance company like via private employer state insurance, or is it directly like we would be essentially like we do with a health insurance company working directly with the insurance provider?
It would be the latter. So essentially what we do right now is, because it would take a statutory change for us to create this sort of a modified short-term disability product. We create a good rate for the state employee pool, which is probably one of the bigger employee pools in the state. And so then that's where you get the power of scale. And then the winning bidder would tell the state, you know, you got to pay, I think I did my math for short-term disability for me right now. I don't have any dependents. It'd be $8.88 a week. And so the bidder would give the state the quote for the premium. The legislature would allocate that, appropriate that, and create a account, basically the pool. And that's where a private employer or an individual or a political subdivision would be able to contract directly with MetLife and then buy into the pool. And they'd all be established on their own basis. So if it's a large employer, say it's ConocoPhillips, and MetLife has the ability to actually like do some experience rating with that employee pool for that provider, the rate might be tweaked, but the goal is to use the most affordable rate, which is ideally what the state has as the floor, and then make sure that it works at scale for any other client or customer. And so, you know, for the state operation, you just go to Division of Retirement Benefits, and just like right now, there's a MetLife portal you log into to file a claim for short-term disability. You would ideally, as an employer, be able to do that with MetLife or any other provider that won the contract, and then it basically your relationship directly with that company.
Hi, this is Barbara. I just have a clarification question. Is this 60% of pay? Is that what I heard? Or 100%?
100%.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
It was
thank
just the New Hampshire model. So it's 100% of
Okay.
pay, which was very important to me, and capped at $3,000 per week or $12,000 per month.
Awesome. Thank you. I thought I heard two different things, so I wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry, that was
Appreciate it.
just in the New Hampshire example I gave. Theirs is set up differently, but it'll be 100%.
Love it.
It-
Thanks.
New Hampshire's a little weird because I think they were just following the market forces when it comes to short-term disability. And that's where a lot of insurers at the end of the day are trying to make money. So that's where there's some protections they build into those policies. But there are a surprising number of states. Once Rip Armstrong said she wanted to do 100% replacement, there are a surprising number of states that do that as well. So we actually are in pretty good company, including like Texas, when it comes to like advantageous benefits.
Mm-hmm. If anybody has any questions that come up or clarifying questions, or you need anything, I'm going to put my cell phone number in the chat. And texting me is the easiest way to get my attention, just because my phone is usually off like a lot of the day in hearings and stuff. But if you text me, I will see it and I can get back to you or get it to Tristan. I'm also going to drop my email, which is another great way to get in touch. And both Tristan and I are available and at your disposal anytime. So if you just have a random one-off question, if it would be valuable for us to share this with other stakeholders or people that you know, we just want to be accessible and make sure that everyone feels comfortable and understands the bill. So, and like I said, if you're interested in supporting or just want to be kept in touch with what's happening and be notified of opportunities to support, just make sure your email is in the chat, and Tristan and I will save those.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Representative and Tristan, for joining us, and thanks everyone for having those great questions. Yeah, I will say that Alaska Children's Trust will be following this bill very closely. I believe we're testifying as well, and we're going to be talking about this every week at our weekly legislative call hours. That's another way that you can stay in touch about this bill, and then other ways to advocate as well. So I'll drop that in the chat too. But with that, I'll give you guys back about 20 minutes of your day. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and please stay in touch.
Bye.
Bye.